Good morning, world. This is Steve Rao on Pod and Roku TVs, greeting you not today live from Washington or any kind of memorial in Washington, but I wanted to go live, but I wasn't able to get there on time. But today I want to begin our message with D-Day. And behind me, the screen I have is the Field of Flags in RTP. This is a project by Durham Rotary to actually have flags, 600 flags behind me, which I hopefully will go live on Friday or Monday from there so you can see it. But the bottom line is that these flags are to honor those fallen soldiers of D-Day and the soldiers of any war in the United States of America. And the flags can be purchased, and proceeds can go to not only present the flags to families, soldiers, and veterans, but the proceeds would go for insecurity in food, veteran homelessness, and other really, really important issues to address. With that being said, before we get to the news, I did want to open up with a quick message on D-Day, June 6, 1944, when 156,000 Allied troops stormed the beaches of Normandy to end World War II as we knew it and begin the end of Nazi Germany. This was the largest amphibious attack in the history of the world, actually. 13,000 airships, 5,000 ships. And President Eisenhower, who at that time was a general, said that all eyes are upon you. The hearts of all liberty-loving people march with you. As we remember D-Day 80 years later, let us never forget how important this day was, how long a day it was, but what the world would have been had we not won or had the invasion been a failure. There was a lot at risk in what was known as Operation Overlord. Omaha Beach was the one beach we can mention. They all had code names. But the bottom line is this: if we hadn't prevailed in World War II, if we hadn't won the D-Day invasion, we would have actually had the Holocaust last for much longer. Hitler could have taken over much of Europe. Dictatorship could have been the norm of governments. Communism would have spread faster. Yes, there still would have been a Cold War. And the post-World War II boom that America experienced may not have happened to the extent that it did, which created a thriving and growing middle class with really most manufacturing taking place in our country. Finally, the rules-based international system, which existed for up until now, where you couldn't just invade another country and take democracy for granted. Well, the greatest generation, what I call our Avengers, reminded us that freedom is not only worth fighting for, but dying for. And the only way we can honor their legacy is to not take our freedom for granted. But more importantly, understand that the pursuit for freedom and democracy continues here at home in the United States and around the world, as dictators like Vladimir Putin will kill and will do anything they can to destroy the loves and liberties of free people in Ukraine. I will end this monologue by just saying we will never forget the greatest generation. We thank any soldier who is defending our country or anywhere in the world right now. We pray for any Gold Star family who has lost a loved one, and we thank any veteran who has served our nation. This Field of Flags is beautiful, so if you're watching this and you live in North Carolina, go to the Hub RTP and see the flags yourself. And I'm hoping to get there tomorrow or Monday. Hopefully the flags will still be there where I can be there live, but I wanted to make sure that I did this. We're going to go ahead and get started. The big news is that Israel bombed a school in Gaza. NVIDIA is arriving at $3 trillion valuation. Prime Minister Modi has reached out to Taiwan, saying that he wants to have a stronger relationship as he puts together his coalition government. And of course, rumblings about the Trump trials and what's going to happen with a president that could be convicted and going to jail. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm here for about 10 more minutes and I've got to head out. But Mark, I hope you're okay, or anybody else come on in and let's get this party started. Oh, Mark Lee, great. Well, I'm at the flags, Mark. I didn't want to be late, so it's funny how you use technology. So I didn't want to be late, so I said, let me just take the picture, put it up on thing, and this is what you would have seen had I been there live. But I'm hoping I can go there live tomorrow. So I saved myself about 30 minutes of driving, or 20 minutes of driving, but it's a beautiful Field of Flags. Mm-hmm. It's really nice. 600 flags.
Yep.
Right.
And as Kim was saying, there's a number of things that are in the news that I have been seeing as well. Apparently, Trump cannot carry his guns, even though he has been said to have some concealed weapons and things along those lines. But they're saying that he's got to turn in his guns and all in that space. And I do know that there has been some talk around contraception and birth control and all along those lines, because apparently there was an effort to try to make that universally accessible. And apparently the Republicans voted that down and all in that space. They said that it wasn't a necessary bill because they said that it is a non-issue. I don't know that I necessarily agree with them and all in that space, but I'll bring in Kim since she brought it up, and Nick as well. And we've also got Rick Rosner with us as well. But it'll be interesting to see what folks have got to say in that regards.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and just lots going on in the world today. I mean, I think it's um,
Good
you know,
morning, Steve. Thank
good
you so
morning.
much for the dialogue. That was so beautiful. And we need to be remembering these things. We really do. This was a time when our country united. And I think we need to reflect on these moments a lot more. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and it's also, before we get into some news, and I'm here for about 20 minutes today, but you know, the distance learning technology. We often think 7, 8 years ago, before we were using tools like StreamYard and other things, if I hadn't got there in person, I wouldn't have gotten there in person. And so here I did a pivot, wanting to go live, but knowing I would be 20 minutes late. So I took the image and I had it in my phone and uploaded it. And, so it's not really live, but you all can see behind me what the flags look like in Durham, which is kind of nice. It's really beautiful. So Nick and Kim, I think you should go out there and check it out. It's and
Well,
watch me.
I would do that, Steve, but I'm right now in Tampa, Florida,
Oh,
and I was going to give a different background, a background of the Bay, but unfortunately, I had problems with my computer, so I just turned on the cell phone to be able to do that. But your monologue is really very powerful, because the what if scenario, what happens if the United States didn't step in? Remember, Hitler and the Nazis had a vice grip on Europe, and it wasn't too far. They invaded when they invaded Russia. If they had taken over Russia, China was being destroyed by the Japanese, and all of a sudden, basically, the Nazis would control most of Europe and Asia. And then you could look at the Japanese. China wouldn't be where it is today. Whether our friends in China know it or not, we saved their goose egg. We sent hundreds of planes over there to defend China. I don't think we've ever been in a war with China. And they were getting slaughtered by the Japanese. And of course, the Nazis were just basically, like I said, they had the whole of Europe with the exception of the United Kingdom. I mean, England, and that was about it. So it could have been a very nasty world, and even nastier, Steve. What happens, because Hitler was trying to develop a bomb too? What happens if he developed the bomb before us?
yeah.
That would have been a game changer. So if you
It's
played a
almost
lot
like
of what if,
the Avengers, Hydra and
yeah,
I've been doing these what if series speeches based on the Avengers, and I've done a couple of commencement speeches. What if, and you just go with different themes. What if you had no diversity? What if you had no this? But it's scary to think how that one day, and think what an important day it was. I mean, it wasn't an immediate victory, and we often think of not only I didn't mention in my monologue, but we think of the phone operators, the people in the back rooms, the nursing, the hospitals, the logistics. It just
yeah,
it wasn't a guarantee,
right.
and they had weather issues and things like that. So I think it does go to show that we have to remember. And you know, I think, like, when you watch the Star Wars movies, the whole reason they have all of these dark things come back even after Darth Vader died is that the bottom line is that the struggle for freedom never stops. And we now we have to remember World War II as we're dealing with a very turbulent world today. And you've got a lot of people in there like, well, we don't want to spend $1 billion to defend Ukraine, but what's the alternative, right? You just start, if they're not successful, then other countries might start coming invading. And that's why I say this rules-based international system today, I think, is kind of at play. I think because if the U.S. doesn't stand strong, okay, now I know Trump is kind of saying that we're not more countries aren't paying their fair share, which he might be kind of correct about. But I don't think we should abandon our role in NATO and abandon our role in the world.
No, I agree with you. There's no way we should. I remember during World War II, my dad was actually delivering tanks to the front lines. Then he'd turn around and go back to get another tank. And he said, and he was offered to be in the infantry. He goes, but all those people in the infantry were getting slaughtered. I mean, people don't realize how many Americans were dying over there on those front lines. It was not a happy thing. So delivering tanks to the front line was a good job. Then you turn around, leave, go get another tank, and bring it back across the English Channel to get, to give support. But they did advance quite rapidly, and of course put the Nazis out of business where they belong. And ever since then, of course, Europe's been redeveloped. Everything's good, except now we've got Putin. So it's almost like we can't seem to get rid of these warmongers. And what he's doing in Ukraine is atrocious. But we also have an atrocity, it seems like, in Gaza. Steve, were you the one that mentioned that now Netanyahu blew up a bunch of kids again?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I know it's frightening, and
Right.
I think that we have to really open up our eyes and see for ourselves what is going on. It's atrocious. And
So Netanyahu's prosecuting the war in a pretty bloody way, but also Hamas has not ceased hostilities.
That's true too. Yeah.
And plus, you got Hezbollah in the north, supplied by Iran, blowing up the north of Israel.
Right. And then you also have the Houthi rebels down in Yemen who tend to attack ships indiscriminately.
And
So-
also supplied by Iran, right?
Also supplied by Iran. Yeah. So you actually have Iran being a warmonger, basically back in Tehran. And the problem with Iran, they also suppress their own people. In other words, they're really horrible. Mark, you probably know a good friend of ours, Ishan Morad-Dabi. He's come to a lot of our meetings. He's the U.S. Open chess champion. Before that, he was the Iranian chess champion, but he escaped Iran because he couldn't stand living there. It was too brutal of a regime for a person that has any thought whatsoever. So now he lives actually in Durham. He's not going to be with us today because he's playing in the National Chess Open in Las Vegas. So I'm going to see how he's doing. Sasha knows.
So I have a couple what ifs for you.
Yeah.
Until the fall of Iran in the 1970s, Iran was a highly westernized country.
Right.
But the U.S. was supporting the Shah, who was, via his secret police, was vicious to his own people. If we reined in the Shah, was it possible for Iran not to have, a very fundamental? Was the Iranian revolutionary? Is there any way to hold off that revolution and keep Iran a westernized country?
Yeah. Again, that's a good what if scenario. In other words, could we have kept Iran being basically a Western country as they were developing toward a Western country?
We installed
That's a good
the
question.
Shah because of oil interests, like
Right.
20 years before that, which was a terrible, one of the things that the U.S. gets, we were bad.
Yeah.
So that's a what if. Another what if that I like to think about is, what if we had nuclear weapons ready in time for D-Day? Would we have opened up the beaches by dropping a bomb on Normandy?
Oh, I'm pretty sure the answer to that question would be yes, because they did the calculation of how many Americans would die. If we had the bomb before D-Day, there would be Berlin would have been obliterated. They just wouldn't stop. Because remember, they did the Dresden firebombing, which was almost as bad as the bomb prior to that. But the bomb was so much more effective. I'm pretty sure it would have saved a lot of lives. People keep saying, well, we shouldn't use the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But if you ask any person from World War II, and there aren't too many people there anymore, that said, oh, yeah, we should. Okay, because They were just a lot of people, a lot of Americans would have got killed. Well, the U.S. stop Israel bombing Gaza. The U.S. can only do so much. That was a good question by Terry. The U.S. can only do so much. Remember, Israel is a sovereign state, and they can only do so much about that. Sasha has a comment on the Gaza bombings. Yes, Sasha.
Not only, I'm wondering, you're justifying, and obviously correctly, the use of bomb in Japan and even the fictional use of bomb in France on D-Day if Russia possessed the bomb. However, killing so many civilians and innocent people, okay, that's fine because we are saving lives of American soldiers. Reasonable, 100%. Mm-hmm. But when Israel has to defeat its enemies, America said, oh, you're killing so many innocent civilians. How dare you are? Don't do that. Don't do that. Where is the logic? Where you are denying Israel its right to defend itself and do the job. And the job, if it wouldn't be American in the West, this mindless talking about you killed too many civilians. No, it shouldn't be in so many. A little bit, okay, not too many. The war would be over in 3-4 months ago, a long time ago. And that's it, the end of question. But now you are mainly, you want to show how civilized you are, how humane you are. Oh, little children are dying and so on. You're believing in the Hamas propaganda, in Hamas produced information, and you are denying Israel right to finish the job once and for all.
Mm-hmm. You're bringing up a good point, Sasha. But even a better point is, why don't we talk about the people in Ukraine that are being annihilated by Putin as we're speaking? Why aren't the protesters out there for the Ukrainians? They're all there for the Palestinians because that's what the media feeds them. But they're not out there for the Ukrainians because right now, our U.S. media is not backing the Ukrainians.
And
let's face it,
Nick, and why it's happening is the money coming to the media to support Palestinians. It's a very hot topic. It's successful.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
That's where the money is.
I agree. There's money being flowed to the media from certain countries that are supporting the narrative that Israel's doing bad, but there's not money flowing from the Ukrainian support to bring the narrative the other way. That what about Putin?
But Nick, there's a lot
of money.
There's money.
No
I'll
money.
be back in about a minute. I'm going to get back to close out. Mark, I'll be back to close out.
Money
What
was
about Putin,
allocated
baby?
to help Ukraine.
There is money going from various countries,
No money.
including
That's
the
why
U.S.
there's no.
There is money, including various money from Western nations and the U.S. to Ukraine. So you can't say that there isn't money flowing.
No, I'm talking
Why
about
is the
media.
abandoning
Money to media
Ukraine?
to help Ukraine has not been allocated even a penny. Nobody cares. Okay, the weapons is a different story. The financial help is a different story. But to protect Ukrainians through social media by allocating some money, and without money, you know what?
There's been money that's been there, and there has definitely been money that has been out there. I know a number of people that would actually argue with you, and that they are frustrated at the amount of money that is going to various wars, Ukraine and even some of the wars in Africa, when there are a number of issues that are not being addressed here in the United States and everything. Because I can tell you that I hear that comment various times when I'm at various public events around this area, as well as on the internet and other places as well. So there are a number of folks that are definitely supportive of Ukraine and supportive of
where are they, Mark? They weren't at Columbia University.
No, they
weren't at Columbia.
There are people in the university. You can't say that.
They weren't at UCLA. They weren't at UNC. Where are your wonderful students? Why aren't these students supporting Ukraine, Mark? Why aren't they supporting Ukraine?
About Ukraine, even at Duke University and at UNC. So you cannot say that conversation is not taking place. So yes, there are conversations, and there are some that are even dealt with in the press as well. So that is a false narrative for
It's-
one.
it-
There
it-
have
no,
definitely
it's
been
being
conversations
suppressed
about
for whatever
what's
reason.
going on, including in our press. As a matter of fact, Ukraine usually leads off in the news along with Israel. So you can't say that
Rarely.
is not happening. So I'm
Rarely.
not going to.
All
No,
right, so-
it's very much engaged. It is very much in the news. There are a number of people that are talking about it on a regular basis and everything. So
Yeah,
that
we
is
are,
a
and that's
false
about it.
narrative, and it's not just us. I've seen it on ABC. I've seen it on CBS. I've seen it on a number of other places. So that is a totally false narrative. Now you've got some peace people that are upset. You've also got some people like my guest yesterday that was on the online dinner party that is basically laying the blame at the feet of the elite, because he was almost giving this notion of the Illuminati and kind of those people that
All
might
right,
be
come on, let's
control of everything.
so the majority of Americans support Ukraine and understand that Ukraine is kind of doing our fighting for us by depleting Russia's resources. However, on the right, there are some idiots or lunatics. Tucker Carlson, America's dumbest Senator Tommy Tuberville, who said that Putin just wants peace and is echoing like Russian talking points. I've yesterday on Twitter, I've heard like right-wing idiots saying that the Ukrainian president is worth $250 million now because he's been stealing. This is all just garbage straight out of Russia. But
Yeah.
for the most part, we understand the war. I mean, not in its details. We understand that Russia's the bad guy, and that Ukraine is doing a heroic job representing the West.
Yeah, but we're not doing enough. See, that's the problem. In other words, we should send them as many F-15s as they need. And I'm sorry, Mark, the media is not supporting, and neither are your college students. They're not supporting Ukraine. And that's a bigger devil sitting over there than Netanyahu. It's called Putin. And so when the college students, and this is the reason I hate these protesters, they run out there at Columbia University, oh, Palestine, Palestine, Palestine. And none of them said Ukraine, Ukraine, Ukraine. It's disgusting to listen to these college students that don't know beans about international relationships. And the thing is, they should have been talking about Ukraine in USC, UCLA, UNC, Columbia University. Instead, it's all Palestine, Palestine.
It's not
So
all Palestine.
it's
There's
just
discussions.
disgusting. No,
There have been several protests. There have been several discussions about Ukraine. There have been several
It's
things
not
about
only
Ukraine,
Palestine,
even on the campus as well. So there have been
was
And your
several protests.
journalist people
category
suck.
No, that
students
is
who were asking each
Look
other,
at Kharkiv.
what
Have
are
you
you
seen what
protesting
Putin's
today
doing
again?
over there?
They didn't have a clue why they're there. They were being paid a couple of $100, and they were asking each other, what are we protesting against today? This is what people are for money. They're coming there. Free Palestine, free Palestine, give me my
like I said, I know a
Yeah,
number of the
I didn't see-
Palestinian
I didn't see
protesters,
one
Nigel,
Ukrainian
and I know
flag,
quite a
Mark.
few of them that are not making a dime off of what
I
you're
didn't-
saying
I
that they're
didn't
making
see
money
one
off of and everything.
Ukrainian
But they
flag. They're
have
all
a
raising Palestinian
interest
flags.
in Palestine for
And that's
whatever
because
reason.
the media
And
is showing
definitely they have various
Palestine.
interests.
The
And
media
the
is causing
pro-Palestinian
this.
struggle has been going on as long as the ANC struggle and a number of other struggles
The
as well.
media
So some
is
people
causing it.
identify because of their own ethnicity. Y'all are a bunch of, and I'll just be blunt, a bunch of older white men and everything. So there's some people that are able to relate because they see it as something that is similar to what they have gone through in their own struggles here in the United States. So there is some parallels to the struggles as well. So that is one of the things that happens in conversations with some of these protesters and everything. So if you want to be honest about it, let's be very honest about why they're
Okay.
protesting. And some
Hey,
of them
come
are
on,
protesting
Mark,
because they see
Mark,
a parallel.
show me one clip, Mark, one clip of a college student during the protest that was showing the Ukrainian flag. Go ahead and bring it to us next week. I'll give you a week to show
I
something
can
that
show you
shows
some. I
Ukraine.
can show you some Ukrainian flags. I did that earlier. I showed you some of the protests that took place immediately after the invasion. And like I said, what Putin has done
No, I
is
want
an atrocity, and there's no doubt that that is an atrocity.
I don't
But
want
there's been a
something that
number of
took
thing.
place a
Even
year ago.
even
Come on,
Cross,
journalism
who was
major.
here as well, has said about a number of panels that he's been on across the country that have been about Ukraine and the need for efforts. And that is a UNC-based program. So he's done several talks about Ukraine and everything. And the same thing with Duke and a number of others.
One
So you
clip
can't say
in
that
the
that is
last
the
3 months.
only issue that is being addressed on these campuses. 'Cause
You,
like I said,
you,
one
you
of the things
can't
that I
you can't
believe that
defend
campuses
the
should be
indefensible, Mark.
about is
Your
one of the things I've said that
journalists suck.
campuses should be about is the notion of critical thinking, and some of these people are making some very critical thinking notions and everything, whether you like it or not. And like I said,
No,
that's one of the things.
I want you to show some proof, Mark.
I will show some.
Next
I have
week,
a
bring a clip in. Do you
story
have a clip?
from I have a story from the University of Connecticut, and at an event or commemorating the second anniversary of the beginning of the war, Ukrainian flags and ribbons were defaced by pro-Russian vandals.
Oh,
So
wow.
So see,
Really?
there are
that happened a week and a half ago.
A week and a
Yes.
half ago. And,
Yes.
and did that hit the major media, Mark? Because
Yes, that some of those has
Rick-
been in
Rick?
the major media as well. Yes, it has
about
been in
the
the major media.
defacing
Yes,
of
that has been in
Ukrainian
the major
flags
media. Yes.
by
Yes,
Russian
by
rebels.
Russians. And
Oh
the
wait, I'm
Russians-
wrong. I'm
I-
sorry, I'm wrong. That happened in March. The anniversary was at the end of February. I misread it. So the
No,
vandalism
it's still
and the
relatively
anniversary.
recent,
No,
and there has been
Name
there have
me
been
the
conversations
commencement
either
speaker
about
who spoke about Ukraine. Name me, hey Rick, since you're doing the research, thank you.
Okay,
Name
I'll-
the commencement speaker that talked about Ukraine. They're all BSing about Palestine.
no. There's several commencement speakers that
You
brought
know,
up Ukraine.
I just want one. Counselor,
Seinfeld
just
brought up
one.
Ukraine and Israel,
I
and that
just
was
want
it too. He
one.
brought up both of them. That's a
I just
commencement
want
speaker.
one. I'm not asking for.
Well, I've got one.
There we go.
But it's from a year ago. Zelensky himself. Wait, so Zelensky did the commencement address at Johns Hopkins University in 23.
Mhm.
And Zelensky
Boy,
and
that's
some other
helpful.
people have-
That's
and some
helpful,
other people
college
have
students
spoken.
that are
I just
listening
told
to
you,
this.
Seinfeld brought up Ukraine at Duke. That was earlier today. He brought up both the wars. So some people are bringing up
This
both
year,
wars in the
Notre,
conversation. So several commencement speakers have brought up both.
at Notre Dame, the commencement speaker, I think, was Ukrainian Archbishop Boris Gudziak.
Okay.
No, wait, he was a keynote speaker, not the commencement speaker.
Right. Okay.
So I mean, but he spoke at graduation, I believe.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, so I mean, yeah, we've got war fatigue with Ukraine. It's been going on for 27 months.
That
and
doesn't
so, yeah,
make it right. You know, just
I'm
because
not
we have
saying it's
war
right,
fatigue.
and you're right, it doesn't get as much
Should the
coverage.
United States go, oh, well, we've got war fatigue with Nazi Germany, so we'll just let them take over the continent? Are you serious? Is
Well,
war fatigue an
look, the media is, we all know the media has lots of failures, and this is probably one of them.
Oh, really? Lots of
Well,
failures?
no, the
This is
media
a
has
big
failures,
one.
and I would not even
This is
disagree
a
with
big
that
one.
and
Come on,
everything.
Mark.
No,
Rev
but
up
I'm
your
saying,
journalistic
but
majors.
Nick, one of the things I would say is that one of the things that the media is very big on, which is an issue that people talk about regularly, is this notion, because that's in our own backyard. I mean, you can only impact but so much what's going on in Ukraine, but I can guarantee you that just about anybody here, Chuck, I get daily reports about gun play here in this area. So a lot of people, including our electorate, are concerned about walking out of their own doors and being shot and everything. So a lot of people are concerned, just like you said about the economy, they're concerned about their own safety. I mean, you are now in Tampa and safe in Tampa, but Durham has had several incidences, and there have been several other incidences around. So a lot of people are more concerned about their immediate consequences and everything, and that is a lot of times what the media plays on. I can guarantee you that if I turn on the 12 o'clock news in about an hour and a half, that I will hear about a number of shootings. Shucks, I just heard about one that was literally down from my job and everything. So that was what a lot of people are concerned about, because a lot of people, it used to be, as I think Rick said one time, that if you were in a fight or you were upset at somebody, you would maybe get into a fisticuff, or you might do something. You might even see somebody pull a switch, as in a switchblade, but you did not see people literally over arguments about girlfriends pulling guns and blowing each other away. So there's a lot of people that are concerned about the notion.
They're concerned, but they won't do anything about
That's why
it.
some people are glad that Mr. Trump won't have his guns.
All right,
Look,
some
until you get rid of the Second Amendment, forget it. It's a wasted conversation.
conservative organization has kept track of the number of hours of Trump trial coverage on news media, and they say it's up to 640 hours, which is like 16 40-hour weeks. And so, the Trump trial coverage was all day, every day on MSNBC and CNN. And you could have spared another 10 or 20 hours from that to feature Ukraine.
Yeah, you would think so. But see, the media is so into ratings. They're not into doing things good for the United States of America. They're into, can they get their ratings up? Can
That's
they
right.
sell more
Yeah.
commercials? If it bleeds, it leads. Since Trump is a circus, he shows up first. So all the important issues are backdoored by major media right now in chase of the almighty dollar, which is being able to get what they perceive people want to listen to and not the important issues. So an important issue like Kharkiv getting destroyed and all the Ukrainians getting wiped out by a ruthless dictator, they ignore it. Yeah, Rick.
So 10 years ago, remember when Malaysian Air, a plane went missing, was never found?
777.
Yeah, on CNN, it was Malaysian Air all day, every day. That didn't inform people. It's just because the Malaysian Air thing they thought was the most effective at getting viewers. And I don't know, they did hundreds of hours of coverage of that at the expense of other stories.
Well, yeah, and with the expense of other very important issues that we bring up on this network all the time, that's totally ignored by major media and frankly, even ignored by the politicians. And we also brought up the border issue. And now finally they're addressing the border issue of all this time, but still they do not have an effective solution to the border. And there are some effective solutions, and there are some really good people out there that have some good ideas, but they all tend to be backdoored because they're looking for the bleed it leads.
And when Congress is paralyzed,
I mean, that's been going on in the news forever. The bleed. Of course. It bleeds, it leads. That's the nature of the news business, and has been there ever since yellow journalism and a number of other things. Years, so I mean, a lot of times. But I mean, I remember a time when Walter Cronkite and others used to cover a number of international issues. I mean, there are other wars going on other than Ukraine and Israel, but we don't talk about those, including wars in the African continents. There are other elections going on, and we here on this network haven't mentioned them, but we only give them a flying, passing by and everything.
But you do a good job.
Part of the global economy, and I will agree with you that a lot of our major networks don't touch on any of the things that are taking place, whether that's in Mexico. I mean, Chuck, I brought up to Sasha yesterday the amount of homeless that are sitting there in Argentina and in some of their major cities and everything. But I would agree with you that our major networks have not touched on that because there is a lot of people that are choosing, well, not choosing, but are being forced to live in the streets in poverty in Buenos Aires, which is the major area there in Argentina. And that's just one example. I mean, I remember at the beginning of Pod TV, hold on a second, Sasha. I remember at the beginning of Pod TV and everything, we had a number of people coming from around the globe, and they would give us their reports, and hopefully we'll get some of them to come back as well, because that was one of the things that I enjoyed was hearing from India and Nigeria, because yes, Nigeria has some issues, and Kenya and a number of other places as well. So yes, Sasha, I know that you have a vested interest in some of the places that you talk about, and I may have some vested interests.
All I wanted to say that you are crying about homeless people on the streets of Buenos Aires. There are homeless people on the streets of Toronto, by the way.
Yes, there are. And those are
what
issues
can I do about? Oh, forget about the people in Toronto. They're okay. In Buenos
Aires, I did not say that. Sasha. The homeless issue is an issue that should be addressed worldwide. The homeless issue is an issue that should be addressed worldwide.
And what are we going to do about it, Mark?
Yes, there are efforts. There are things that people can do about it. There are even proposals to make homeless.
No, nobody will do anything about homeless
basic
people.
Human right. I think I've heard Nick say that and everything. So there are solutions.
I can write now a check for $100,000 to help homeless people. Am I going to do that? Absolutely no.
Yes,
I
there are
want
solutions.
somebody else to write me a check for $100,000. I'm
I'm
not
sure you would
going
like
to write a
that. I would
check
like
for
that too, but there are
$100,000.
efforts
So
that can be
those
done.
homeless people will be lying on the street. That's their chosen way of
That
life.
is not
They
their
can
always
do
their
something
choice. That
different,
is
but
not
they
always their choice. Not
not
everybody
to.
that is
So let
homeless
them
is
be on
doing
the
it by
street and
choice
stop
and
crying
everything.
about
As a matter of fact,
Please.
Sasha, have you ever spent a moment with the homeless?
No.
All right, well, I have. So you can't speak. 'Cause I've actually talked
Congratulations.
to,
So
I
go
have
and
talked
help.
to them. I've
Go
actually
and
even one
help
time
them,
been in the
Mark.
situation
Fly to
and everything.
Argentina. Go on the streets to Buenos Aires. Then fly to Africa and go on the streets to Africa.
Well, why
Hell,
don't you give me the money to do that? I will
that
gladly do that. Why don't you
pleases
back
you.
me and I'll go
It
and do
seems to
some
me
of that
as if
work that
it
you're talking about.
pleases
So
you
why
to
don't
help.
you send me a check? I'll
Please
gladly
go
take the
and
check
do
from
it.
you
But
and we'll
stop
go do it.
talking
As a
about
matter
it.
of fact, we can go do it even
There is
using
no
your
need.
game of
All
chess
that
and
talk
everything.
and 75 cents will buy you a cup of coffee. Stop
Yeah, and a lot of
wasting everybody's
we can
time.
talk about chess all day long too. Even though it's not as
All
popular
right,
as
come
say
on.
basketball that's getting ready to start.
I just want to say that I'm in the U.S. capital, maybe the world capital of homeless. In
Yes,
LA County, we have 73,000 homeless people. And we talk about it all the time, but solutions are tough. But we're not going to get solutions to the border from Congress before 2025. Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, is busy showing up at Trump trials. They don't want to solve the border. They can't solve the border. The House is equally divided. Mike Johnson just appointed Ronnie Jackson to the House Intelligence Committee, along with this Scott guy who was part of the January 6th insurrection deal. Just like Ronnie Jackson's insane, was demoted by the Navy for drugs and harassment. The current House of Representatives is not serious, and we're not going to get action until a new Congress is seated, and maybe not even then.
Well, Rick, I already told you what you do with the people come in. You charge them a $10,000.
Yeah, but you can't do that. Any ideas you
Sure
have,
you
you've
can.
got good ideas. Everybody's got ideas. Those ideas can't be implemented under the current Congress.
But like I said, $10,000. If you got to look at it, and they have to pay it back. They can't discharge it in bankruptcy. Similar to what student loans do right now, except most students, their debt's more than $10,000. And my ancestor came over here in 1650 as an indentured servant. I mean, and what you do is you work it off, you pay off your 10 grand, and poof, you're a citizen. There's nothing wrong with that. It gives us money. We can do background checks on them, et cetera. Now, when it comes to homelessness, I'm moving to a country that has almost no gun crime and almost no homelessness. It's called Spain. Now, you're telling me the Spanish people in Spain can get rid of homelessness and have no gun crime, yet the United States of America, purportedly the strongest country in the world, can't solve those problems. It's because we have bad laws and bad politicians. We have the Second Amendment, which screws all the gun laws in the United States. And then we have no directive whatsoever by any of our leaders to eliminate homelessness, which they were able to do basically in Spain. They could do it here, but there's just no political will. So enjoy your
Sasha,
homelessness, America.
Nick, excuse me.
I'll be in
Excuse me, Nick.
Barcelona.
Hold on a second.
Baby.
They just passed a new homeless law in Spain, so they do have homelessness, and nearly 37,000 people are homeless in Spain. So yes, you are
they're
going to
getting rid of them.
Spain and everything. So they do
Go to
have
Barcelona,
homelessness
you
in
can't
Spain.
find any of them.
Maybe because you're not
homeless
looking
people.
for them. But they just said, and this was from an article that was literally last month. So there are a number of homeless people that are in Spain, and yes, they got some laws that might be fighting and giving efforts of relief, because that's even what they were doing in Argentina. So for you to say that there are no homelessness in Spain is a false narrative, and that's not true.
Almost no homelessness in Spain, Mark. But also they have some very strange laws that allow people to be squatters, so they don't allow the greedy capitalists to own multiple homes and drive people's rent.
Well, I mean, they just passed their first law this year. Last year they just passed their law, which was the 2023 Housing Act, which has been the topic of conversation there and everything, to create a housing policy that can prevent and solve inequality, which is a major issue, even here in the United States as well. So definitely they have done something in that space. But in Spain alone, they said that the record shows that 28,552 people spent the night on different shelter services. So definitely they do have a homeless issue, and it's actually been on the rise, because it was actually
Mark,
around
a quick
20,000
question to
in
you.
2005, and now it's up in this area. So that is actually from the fine folks
Enough,
there
enough,
in
enough of
Spain.
it. Okay, yes, there are homeless people in Spain. Agree with you,
There
Mark.
are.
You proved
Right.
it beyond any reasonable doubts. But you tell me, Mark, since you're expert in that issue, are there any country in the world when there are no homeless people? Are you aware of it?
I'm not aware of any, but there.
Okay, so I looked it up. I looked it
Iceland.
up. The
Maybe
craziest homeless situation is in Manila, the Philippines. 3 million homeless,
Mhm.
which is just insane. Then Moscow, Buenos Aires, 200,000 homeless. Moscow, 100,000 homeless.
Okay,
Calcutta, Italy,
Rick,
I mean,
how about
India, 80,000 homeless.
how about Iceland? How many homeless people in Iceland, Rick?
Well, it can't be more than 250,000 because there are only 250,000 people in all
I
of
know.
Iceland.
I know, but
I would be
have
surprised if there are more
ChatGPT
than
tell us
500
Iceland.
people homeless.
Well,
in
I'm looking at statistics right now, and there are
What
a
does
couple of
Iceland
countries,
say?
including Malta, that has close to less than 10%. Portugal has less than 10%. Bulgaria has less than 10%, and yes, Spain does have less than 10%. So it's doing
What
better
about
than some of
Iceland?
the other countries. But Greece, so maybe you need to move to Greece. Apparently, doesn't even register and neither does Cyprus or Lithuania. So yeah, there are some countries that apparently don't have any homelessness in this graph that I am seeing.
All right,
What
so
about Iceland?
here's Iceland, 1,272 people,
Wow,
Oh my
actually,
God.
that's a lot more than I
which
thought.
is that's 1/2 of 1% of the population.
Yeah,
I thought it would be less than 500.
I thought less than 500. How about the United States of America?
No, I just said that it's a major issue and we don't even talk about
I know,
it.
but
And that
I
is
want to
one
get
that the media doesn't
metrics,
cover
the metrics.
as well.
Hold
I want to
on.
get the metrics.
So according to HUD, nearly 2/3 people.
What?
Mhm.
Um,
600,000?
Yes, it is that high in the United States.
But it's how you count them.
What?
So I don't know. My wife has taken part in homeless people censuses, and you have to go out. You have to go to where homeless people are known to be. You have to. It's a tough thing. So I don't know if this HUD estimate, how they came up with that.
Really?
But
see, when I was running calculations, I looked at we could provide homes for all those people for around $600 billion or some crazy number like that and solve the homeless problem. Then I looked to see what the politicians are doing and what homeless act did we pass in the last couple of years, Mark?
Like I said, we haven't passed any, and there's an issue that needs to be addressed,
Lord.
just like the mental health issue needs to be addressed.
Oh,
We've got a number
Lord.
of veterans that have come back from war.
So-
I mean, that's
so
one
we
of the
have a
things
problem.
that Steve was talking about earlier with this notion of D-Day and celebrating our veterans. And we got a number of veterans
that's
that are
wonderful. That
dealing
really
with
helps the homeless
both homeless
people,
and
the D-Day.
mental health illness,
That
and we
really
don't address
helps
either of
people.
those.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
already said many times on this program, if you take few billions from Bezos and few billions from Musk and few other people, and you will build enough housing that there will be no homeless people in the world, that will last 2 weeks maximum. Why? Because people who will move into these free houses, they still have to pay maintenance, electricity, the internet, or whatever other charges. And no one will be able to do that, though they will become nonsense. They will be ruined in a matter of few weeks, and there will be a finish of this program. Get real. Those homeless people, they will be homeless, most of them, and at the end of story, there is nothing to discuss. Mark, you want to talk about it
No,
for
there's
another
plenty of
45 minutes?
discussion.
Please,
There are
don't
solutions
you?
that can be addressed. Unlike you, I am not as pessimistic about the human condition and
positive it can
everything,
be-
because I
it
think
can
that
be
there's
changed.
a problem that can be solved and that it can be addressed. But I
Not
think
all
there are a number of
problems
issues that we can
solved.
address, just like
The
the food
problem
desert.
of
You probably
homeless
don't think
people
It is
is
definitely
not
a
you probably don't think
solvable
the food
and
problem.
desert
should
can be
not
solved.
be solved.
Yeah, hey,
A lot
Josh,
of these
think
people
that the
are
food desert
happy
can be
to be
solved?
homeless and sleep on the streets. They are happy. That's their way of life. They're denying everything, all civilization, all the people who are working and going to schools or so on. They hate them and they deny them, and they would kill all of them if they could. Now they can't. So just leave it like
I don't
that.
necessarily agree
All
with
right.
you
So
on that.
no, let me
Yeah,
say.
right.
So if you look at the homeless, you know that there's a huge variety of
Yes,
types of
Right.
homeless people, from violently crazy people
yes.
to who will not be housed, to people who've had like some kind of, run into some illness without medical insurance and lost
Right.
their housing. So
Right.
if you split it into, thirds, 1/3 crazy, 1/3 substance problems, 1/3 bad luck people, you can certainly house the bad luck people and help them get back on their feet. The crazy people, the substance people, you can house a lot of them. They're not going to be able to pay maintenance, but it turns out to be cheaper to house, a fairly well-behaved, semi-crazy person than have them on the streets and being sent to the emergency room 6 times a year to
or they end up in jail, and jail becomes their new housing, and so it's absolutely ridiculous. But what we can fault the media and Mark's journalistic majors, because they do not bring up the homelessness on major media, and they don't bring up solutions.
I can tell you stories that people literally have talked about it here in this area, and they've actually talked to the
they talk
homeless.
about
So
the
you
weather.
can't say that they are not talking about it. They even bring it up.
They-
I mean, sometimes
even Joe Biden doesn't
particular
talk about it.
times
He's
and
talking about
everything.
D-Day. D-Day is important, but let me tell you something. 600,000 people sleeping on the streets of America tonight are more important than him running over to D-Day and throwing up a couple American flags. We're having our own D-Day right now as we're speaking. It's 600,000 Americans. They're sleeping on the streets that they don't have to. If the leadership in the United States, which we don't have, would get off their butts and do something about this, because it's a solvable problem. They even have the money. You know what they did? They squandered the money that they already on Internet for All, CHIPS Act, climate change. In the meantime, they ignore the homeless and let them just sit on the streets because they're crazy people anyway. Yeah,
So
right.
just to support your point, if this number is right, 2/3 of a million,
That's a
that's
lot.
only one American in 500. And
Yeah.
so it seems like, it could be addressed a little better.
You think?
It's 3 homeless people for every 2 soldiers who died in World War II.
Yeah, and why don't your idiot kids, college students, protest about the homeless people in America? It's because
nobody pays money for it, Nick. That's why. Okay.
They do what?
Nobody pays.
Nobody's paying for them to do it. Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
But the thing is, here you have a major problem in the United States. It's disgusting in the United States of America, which is one reason I went to Barcelona and Spain, because at least they're doing something about the few homeless that I couldn't find when I was in the Gothic Quarter and running around Barcelona. I literally couldn't find them. If I go to New York City, I bump them into every street corner. If I go to Barcelona, I can't even find them. And I guess you can find them in LA. You can find them in the US. But then there are a lot of countries that have addressed this issue successfully, and the United States doesn't even address the issue because they're too busy. They're too busy protesting about Palestinians.
Spain has between 30,000 and 40,000 homeless people.
So who has 30,000?
Spain. So
yeah, right. But they also have
Spain has what, about 1/6 or 1/5 of the U.S. population. So roughly, Spain has a homelessness rate of 1/3 of the U.S.
Yeah, right. And then so it's also the same thing with the gun violence. Rick, if you looked at the gun violence and murder by gun, go check it out. Spain is like 1/6 of the United States. How can a country that's a tiny little country like that have better metrics than this country? I don't get it.
In 2022, 50 people were killed by guns in Spain. In the U.S., it was 36,000.
How much thousand?
About 100 people in the U.S. die from guns every day. About
how many die in Spain? How many die in Spain?
50. One a week.
Okay.
So
yeah. Right. There we go.
In a week, one person in Spain dies from a gun. 700 Americans die.
Right. Yeah. And why is that?
Well, because we have 1.75 guns for every adult American.
We've got easy access to guns, and we've also got a gun culture. Because you just heard, Rick, Steve earlier mentioned the notion that Trump has to give up his guns, and ever since the Wild
Hasta
Wild West
luego,
days and
baby.
everything along those lines, there's been this notion of everybody needs to have a gun to protect themselves
Good.
and to protect their situation. I just told you that literally I get around by mass transit, and I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago that somebody had gunplay because they were upset over their girlfriend and everything. So instead of having a fist fight, they decided to shoot guns, and I think there was even some injuries in that. I can't remember the fatality.
And is this problem going to be solved in the next 10 years in the United States?
Not the gun thing, no.
No, it isn't. So my little butt is leaving this country and going over to Barcelona and Spain, so I don't have to deal with it because I can't solve the problem. And Americans aren't interested in solving the problem. They love the sight of blood. They love the goo that's out there. And since I can't solve it, I'll just leave. Goodbye.
They love
By the way, you are not alone who is leaving United States in the near future. I was yesterday horrified when
I even have my plane tickets.
I saw an interview with Andrew McCabe, who was law enforcement officer in Trump administration, I believe. And he was, when asked a question, if he's not scared of retribution that Trump is planning if he will be in the office, he said, yes, I'm scared. And not only I'm scared, but a lot of law enforcement in United States of America are scared. And I think Biden should be scared because he will be the first one who will be locked in jail. But maybe it's too late for him to worry about anything at all.
But Sasha, the flip side of that is the notion that I brought y'all the video about that. There are a number of people that are madly in love for whatever reason with Trump and everything, and they have literally said that if he does not win to the election, that what happened on January 6th will be looking mild. In other words, they will take to the streets and they will create a civil war, and all along those lines, and a number of his supporters have said that.
This is the stupidity of American politics. They're not addressing the issues. They're not addressing homelessness. They're not addressing fentanyl. They're not addressing the border. Instead, Trump versus Biden. Who gives a rat's rear of both those guys? They're both losers. Get rid of them. Get somebody who can actually identify problems and solve problems, which is not the media of the United States.
Very important point. I'd like to make an important point. If Biden will be reelected, so he will be sleeping for another 4 years.
That's correct.
Most likely he'll die before the end of his.
No. If you run the statistics, he most likely won't. He's
Most likely, I agree.
He's odds-on favorite.
Okay. Most likely, there will be bets. I think there will be bets. I think it will be.
I wonder about getting dementia, though.
But if Trump will become a president, that will be the end of the world we are living in. He will put to jail everybody that he just. Okay, this guy in jail right away, right now. In next 45 seconds, report to me that the guy is already in jail. He will be real dictator with all apparatus of United States and Senate. And you know what? You won't even need Senate. By the way, to get U.S. out of NATO, he even doesn't need decision of the Congress. He can sign that U.S. is leaving NATO. Donald Trump. The end of story. No Senate, no House, nobody.
Well, speaking of Donald Trump, his favorite lady and everything came up with another great quote because apparently Marjorie Taylor Greene was comparing.
Don't mention that name. She's such an idiot. Please.
But this time she was comparing Donald Trump to George Floyd. So apparently Donald Trump and George Floyd are the same and everything. So apparently that's what her latest stupid quote is.
I want to go back to I was surprised. I was looking up the U.S. 37,000 gun deaths a year, but Brazil 49,000.
I know. That's the reason I don't go to Latin America. I
stay out of Brazil. But when you think of Italy, you might think of the mafia and guns, but not really. Italy, 800 gun deaths a year.
And doesn't it matter? It depend because Brazil is a very diverse country. So I've been told from my Brazilian friends, it depends on which part of Brazil you're going to. Yeah, if you're going to the major areas, then you might be in trouble. But there are other parts of Brazil that are not as toxic, if I can use that language and everything.
Well, how many do they wipe out? About 40,000 people a year. That's like taking the entire Duke Stadium or UNC Stadium and annihilating all the people every year, Mark. That's how bad Brazil is. But Brazil wasn't on my list because of what you just said, Rick. It's my wife and my son have both been down there, and they said you got to be real careful, because
You have to be real careful anywhere you go.
No, you got to be. No, you have to be careful everywhere you go. Iceland, you're okay. Okay,
but not Greenland. Greenland has the world's highest gun suicide rate, 3 times. I don't even know how many people live in Greenland. That could be based on like 2 people killing themselves.
Yeah,
Nobody lives in Greenland.
No one. Yeah, it's really not too popular.
I think that's the way how in Greenland they avoid homeless problem.
Yeah,
whoever is homeless just kills himself.
They just kill themselves homeless.
It's too cold over there to be homeless in Greenland.
Well, see, Sasha, you made the right choice when you left Ukraine and you came to Canada, and you didn't go to the United States of America. The United States of America is the wild, wild west. It hasn't improved, but I don't see the metrics where it's going to improve in the next 10 years. They have a lot of bright people here. They've got a lot of smart people here. They've got a lot of advancements here, but the people that lead this country are a bunch of morons, including MTG that you mentioned, Mark, that has no business being a congressperson from anywhere. I mean, who would elect this complete idiot? I don't know. But go on, Rick.
So we have a lot of trends that will help address homelessness indirectly. One is the tech revolution in home building, which is only just now starting. And the other thing is that we're so distracted by social media and everything else that we're making fewer babies. So the population is not growing. So I assume that if the population stays steady or decreases, that eventually, the housing will catch up and will. In California, the average house costs $800,000.
Yeah, no wonder why there's homeless people.
Yeah, so
they can't afford a house.
But if 10 years from now, 20 years from now, if the U.S. population is the same or even a little less, I assume that the cost of housing will be less.
But you know what they did in China? They actually built one big apartment complex that holds 30,000 Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the solutions are available. We're not talking about you've got pancreatic cancer. There's no solution. You're going to die.
Well, there's now a solution for pancreatic cancer. They now have, they just announced like personalized genetic-based drugs. They sample your tumor. They use AI to figure out the shape of the antibody that can grab that tumor to kill it, and they tweak your immune system so it makes these antibodies. And pancreatic cancer kills most people who get it within 10 months. They gave this new personalized therapy to 16 pancreatic patients. It cured half of them.
Wow. Yeah. Well, see, that's what I'm saying. We're having good advancements in medical technology. AI is booming, and everything could make a difference on a positive note. Yet we're talking about Donald Trump and Joe Biden, both people that aren't that smart, who don't know very much and can't lead to save their lives. Well, one does lead, but he leads you into bankrupt corporations. And the other one is lucky to lead one foot in front of another. And that's what we have leading the United States. And that's the reason you have problems. I'll see you back here in about 4 years from now when my visa expires.
Right. Well, so Trump is a dunderhead. Trump is bad at everything. Biden isn't a genius, but he's the embodiment of a normal politician. He's been in national politics for 50 years. So with Biden, you're basically going to get standard solutions, which you hate because those solutions bust the budget.
Yeah, that's true. It does. So they still have to balance the budget. We're running out of time, Mark. So we're going to have to go, and you have to press the buttons. I have no administrative controls, so unfortunately, I can't do anything.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Hold on a second. If everybody will depart, I'll try to get to those buttons. I need to get the buttons from here. Hold on. I don't know. Things are not acting right. I'll just pull y'all off and we'll do it the old fashioned way.